Welcome to the Richard Sherman Podcast. Hit that sub button if you're new. We're here to give you great NFL content, game recaps, player interviews, and stories from around the league. Please tune in. Welcome back to the Richard Sherman Podcast. Mitchell, it was upset city this week. I am not happy about these results. Two teams, two opponents that I thought my teams would dominate in the Seattle Seahawks and the San Francisco 49ers. I thought they would have these games against the Arizona Cardinals, who had just lost by 28 points to the Washington Commanders, and the New York Giants, who just have been below average in a lot of categories. But they played their best ball and put off some huge upsets.
You're not lying. I mean, my thoughts and prayers are with you, Richard. I know these games were important to you, and I'm telling you what, it's like both of these teams were finding a way to lose as opposed to finding a way to win. Let's start in San Francisco, because this team, they were up 23-10 at halftime. All looked great. Everything was going their way. Heck, until the 7-minute mark of the fourth quarter, they had an 85% chance of winning. Richard, the offense in the second half goes interception, turnover on downs, lost fumble, interception. What went wrong? Who do you point the blame at for the loss in this game?
There's a lot of people that deserve blame in this one. There were sometimes the offensive line, Brock Purdy with pressure in his face. Obviously, the last interception gets hit. Maybe he could have held it. Maybe he makes a better decision to hold it and just take the sack, but he's trying to make a play. He has George Kittle wide open right in front of him. The Jordan Mason fumble just feels like it's unexplainable, unfortunate. Like you fall them back. Guy swipes at the ball, you squeeze it, you let the ball go. But just the red zone woes throughout this season have just been inexplicable. And really, it's been their Achilles heel. You could hear Tom Brady talking about it during the broadcast. Hey, you in these little battles, throughout the game, holding them to 3 points from the 6-yard line, holding them to 3 points, holding them to 3 points. Like you win those battles, that's 4 points off the board. That's 4 points off the board in the first half. And those end up being huge points, especially in a game you lose by 1 point. Now, it was a really hot game, the hottest at Levi Stadium, but both teams have to deal with the heat. It's not like Arizona is a hot weather team and they play in an indoor stadium. It's hot in Arizona, but they play indoor. This offense just never really got in rhythm. You look, and Brock Purdy went 19-35 for 244, but he had the 2 interceptions, and both of them were off tip passes. But it just felt weird. It felt off. This game, he did have the 1 touchdown to George Kittle that looked really good. It looked really good drive, pushed the ball down the field. But the first drive of the game, Kyler Murray goes out there and is pointing 45 yards away from the end zone that he's about to score. And, it looked like that. He had a lane. Has tremendous speed, beat everybody, had 83 rushing yards in the game and a rushing touchdown, threw for 195. It just looked like they couldn't get to him. And this team looked very different than the team that lost by 28 points to the Washington Commanders. That team got dominated on both sides of the ball. This San Francisco 49ers team, I just don't really have the answers. You have too many turnovers. Brandon Ayuk had the best game of the season, but it's in a loss. Jordan Mason, 14 carries for 89 yards. It seems really solid. But again, the fourth quarter fumble is a huge reason why they lost this ball game. Then you talk about the kicker getting injured, and Moody gets injured, and you can't kick field goals in the game, so you have to go for it on 4th and 23. That's a ridiculous play, and it's nobody's fault. That's an injury. Again, there was a blocked field goal in the game. Diamador Lenore on his birthday, huge play. I was very happy to see that he can make that play. Elliott gets his hand up, blocks that field goal. But if you really think about it, and you take away that blocked field goal, they scored 16 points on the offensive side of the ball. That's unacceptable. And some of those points were set up by Nicholas John Bosa's interception return that brought them into field goal range. You have to get in the end zone. You have to. You got to score in the second half. You can't not score any points in the second half. They went scoreless. Mitchell, 14 unanswered points, and that's how you lose the game. You give Arizona a lot of credit. Let's not take anything away from them. This is a huge win for them. Bounce back game. Kyler Murray played well. James Conner played well. Michael Wilson had some big catches. Trey McBride had some big catches. Kazir White's interception. Mac Wilson's interception. Those are all huge plays in the game. But it's just felt like so many missed opportunities for the San Francisco 49ers and just uninspired play, at least offensively. I think defensively they battled. The heat probably warmed down at the end, but there was a time in the game where it just looked like James Conner was just having his way. And this Arizona offense was just downhill running 4 or 5 yards a clip. And you can't have that as an elite defense. You got to find a way to get stops. You got to find a way to put the fire out. You got to find a way to turn the ball over. And they did that with Nicholas John Bosa's interception, but you got to make more plays down the stretch. But I think this one falls on the offense. They didn't execute in the red zone. They settled for field goals way more often than they needed to. And that's, you don't deserve to win these games when that happens.
A couple things stood out for me. This is the first game I really looked at and said, they could really use Christian McCaffrey right now. Yes. They need somebody that's a game breaker that can bail them out, because that second half offensively, they did not look like themselves whatsoever. On the defensive side of the ball, like you said, James Conner, I think he averaged 1.5 yards a carry in the first half. And in the second half, even when they were down multiple scores, Arizona just kept pounding the rock, because you know what? James Conner was productive. He had some big plays. He had some runs that were stopped at the line of scrimmage that he gained 6-7 yards on. San Francisco was getting bullied in that second half, Richard. And the end result, while shocking, Arizona deserved that to win that game based on how they played in that second half. And San Francisco, frankly, deserved to lose. And there was multiple people to blame. Another thing that stood out for me, offensively, Brock Purdy is a slippery guy, and a lot of teams haven't been able to contain him. He's able to sneak out of the pocket and pick up on these plays. And we saw Naquan Jones, deliver a huge hit on that sack. And that was one of those plays like, the tide is really turned here if Arizona is bringing the pressure and getting to Purdy in a situation that he might otherwise have gotten out of. San Francisco, this is a wake-up call, Richard. They're 2-3. Where's your panic meter sit right now with this team?
My panic meter is at a
huge
game. It's at 11. It's at 11. It's panic mode, because these are 2 unacceptable division losses to the bottom dwellers of your division. This isn't a team that's, the Rams, you say, well, it's an awful loss, but you say Stafford. Stafford can get you sometimes. He has the ability, but still unacceptable loss with the amount of injuries they had and things like that. Then you're like, this team here just coming off a 28-point drubbing to the Washington Commanders and Jaden Daniels and Dan Quinn. And you're like, hey, we should be able to look at that tape and find answers and be able to win this game. But you're not. You're not winning this game, and you're the more talented team walking into the stadium each and every time. And you could talk about the injuries. You could talk about the heat. We can make excuses, but these are the games you got to dominate, and they're not dominating. I don't know what else to say. I don't really know. Thank God it's a short week. And they got us this Thursday in Seattle on Prime Video. Seattle's coming off a very tough loss as well, where they just, we're going to get to that game in a second, but it just doesn't look good. It didn't look good. Neither of these teams that are supposed to be the class of this division looked good today against very, very undermatched, overwhelmed teams that just, outcoached them, outplayed them, out-efforted them, outran them. It's tough. It's tough to watch. It was tough to watch this game, especially in the second half. In the first half, there were some bright moments, some good drives, some really good defensive plays. The blocked field goal was a huge play, especially with what's been going on with the special teams the first few games. But then everything else is falling apart. Brandon Ayuk finally gets to shine. But now we turn the ball over 3 times. It's like you fix one problem, something else breaks. And that seems to be the luck of the draw this season with the San Francisco 49ers.
TD, Tutty, taking it to the house, in for 6. Whatever you want to call a touchdown, one thing's for sure. Touchdowns matter more at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. On the ground, in the air, from special teams or defense, we don't care how they score them. We just want to bet on touchdowns. And DraftKings Sportsbook is the #1 place to bet touchdowns. Ready to place your first NFL bet? Try something simple like a player to score a touchdown. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app and make your bet today. Ready to do a touchdown dance of your own? New DraftKings customers bet $5 to get $250 in bonus bets instantly and get 1 month of NFL Plus Premium. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code Richard. That's code Richard for new customers to get $250 in bonus bets when you bet just $5, and you get 1 month of NFL Plus Premium. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Thursday Night Football is on, and it's only on Prime Video. It's the best season yet, packed with big rivalries and even bigger stars. Join Al Michaels, Kirk Herbstreit, and Kaylee Hartung every week for the games you can't miss. Coverage begins at 7 p.m. Eastern with football's best party, TNF Tonight. Not a Prime member? Not a problem. Simply sign up for a 30-day free trial, and you can cancel at any time. It's Thursday Night Football, and it's on Prime Video. Restrictions apply. See Amazon.com/Amazon Prime for details.
Well, let's take it to Seattle, the division foe at home against the New York Giants. Everyone thought this was going to be a win, myself included, and it wasn't. Richard, where do you point the blame here? Because again, this game was a W when you looked at it on the win column going into this game, and maybe we overlooked it. This is the NFL. The Giants showed up. The Seahawks clearly did not.
Where do you point the blame? A lot of places. Defensively, you need more. Coming off the Jared Goff perfect game on Monday night, you expect to say, hey, let's rinse that, watch that film, really be critical of each other, really be critical of ourselves, and say, we're going to get that fixed. We're going after this guy, Daniel Jones. He's been struggling. Let's bury him early, get the 12s into this game, have the crowd feeling good, and just walk away with this game in a way that you expect and feel good going into Thursday night. That was not the case. I mean, this is probably Daniel Jones's best game as a professional, moving the ball at will, finding his players at will, and this is without his best player, arguably the best player on their team in Malik Nabers. And so that just adds another layer of another component to how terrible this loss was, because how are you letting them move the ball like this without Malik Nabers? At one point, he was 13 of 15 and just really efficient, moving around. They're not getting into him. They're running the ball with a relatively unknown 6th-round drafted rookie in Tyrone Tracy, who had 18 carries for 129 yards and was just slicing and dicing this defense that was tremendous the first 3 weeks of the season, where they were 3-0. They were one of the best defenses against the run. And again, you're seeing where Leonard Williams and Byron Murphy would come into play. Mitchell, you need those big fellas up front. And without them, you're seeing a drastic fall off on that level and in that regard in terms of run defense. But on the other side, you're looking like, hey, the secondary who's been really playing well, and Mike McDonald's scheme has been doing really well. You're just, I mean, they're not stopping anybody. Slayton was all over the field, having his way. He had 8 catches for 122 and a touchdown. I just can't imagine how this would have went if Malik Nabers would have played. It might have gotten bad. I don't really have a lot of answers. Again, Geno Smith didn't have a lot of opportunities because they weren't on the field for very long. He was sacked 7 times. And again, we talked about what Detroit, he was hit 14 times. You got to stop. This offensive line has to get this corrected. They have to fix this problem because again, when Geno's kept upright and able to deal, he can play. He can play at a really high level. But there are very few quarterbacks that can get sacked 7 times and still play a really good game. He threw for almost 400 last week and was getting the heck beat out of him. And he played a really solid game this week, 28 of 40, 284, 1 touchdown, no interceptions, had 73 rushing yards, which led the team. Very critical rushes on that last drive to get them in field goal range. And for all intents and purposes, I feel like he did everything he needed to do to get this team in position to win this game or at least tie it with under the circumstances he's under. They're not blocking for him. They're not blocking well. They don't have the personnel up front to protect him. On the other side, that defensive line isn't getting the pressure they once were. Tyrell Dodson had a sack. Derek Hall had a sack. But one of the sacks was literally Daniel Jones just falling over himself, dropping the football, and then slapping the football back towards the goal line. I mean, it just looked like a ridiculous play, especially early in the game. And you're thinking, oh, man, Daniel Jones is about to have another Daniel Jones game. And the Seattle Seahawks are going to run away with this one. But that is not what happened. He turned that game around immediately. It was a 3rd and long. I think it was a 3rd and 18. And they threw a screen. They threw a screen pass, Mitchell. And they got the first down. And then they threw another one. They said, hey, it worked so nice. Let's do it twice. And it worked again. And that's where I started to sense a little concern for myself. I said, oh, this might not be a good day. Because these are simple plays. You know, I play with one of the best screen masters in the game, and KJ Wright. If there was a screen, even if he's the only guy over there, you know that screen was snuffed out and done. He read it so fast, and you're not getting those kind of reads. I don't know if it's, you know, if they're adjusting to new coverages or they're trying new things schematically, but it's not looking the same as it was. The secondary gave up some explosive passes throughout this game that just were uncharacteristic of who they were over the first 3 games. Rashawn Jenkins had a really cool play, the 102-yard fumble recovery touchdown that looked kind of like a touchdown early in the game. And you know, but even in that drive, they drove the ball all the way down to the 1, and they did it relatively easy. And although they came out and the defense got a turnover and scored a touchdown, it still didn't leave you feeling like this was going to be their game. And Jerome Baker had 14 tackles and a sack, played a really good game. But when you give up 129 yards to a guy, you never feel good about it. This was supposed to be an easy win at home in front of the 12s. Instead, you're kicking a field goal to tie the game. They block it, return it for a touchdown, and just break your hearts. And it never should come down to that. It shouldn't come down to that. They had opportunities to win this game, to close it out, and they just didn't get it done. And it really, really was sad and frustrating. I'm sure it was frustrating for the team and frustrating for the fans. Obviously, again, we have them this Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern on Prime in Seattle against the San Francisco 49ers. Both teams looking to get the bad taste out of their mouth. And we'll see how that goes. But right now, it's really a really disappointing, heartbreaking loss for these teams. And both teams were at home and got to get in their cars and drive back and look in the mirror and have some really tough conversations. And these coaches are going to have to make some really difficult decisions in the near future of how to fix these things, because that interior offensive line for the Seattle Seahawks has to get fixed. Obviously, the right tackle has been a revolving door, you know, injuries and things like that. Hopefully Abraham Lucas can come back soon. But if they don't get healthy on that defensive line, and I'm not sure they're going to get healthy enough by this Thursday, they're going to have a really tough time.
Richard, let's not understate this here. I mean, these 2 outcomes are shockers, put simply, and it could have been a lot worse. You mentioned the Rashawn Jenkins 102-yard fumble recovery for a touchdown. That's a 14-point swing right there. Seattle could have been over and out a heck of a lot earlier in this game. They stuck with it. The other thing is DK Metcalf. This is I've really enjoyed watching him this season. He's in my opinion, he's stepped up. He's become a leader on this team, but 2 games in a row with crucial fumbles, right? I mean, it's got to correct that. And then the Giants, they might have found somebody in this Tyrone Tracy, because he gashed the Seattle Seahawks defense time and time again. You're not used to seeing that out of a rookie 6th-round pick, but they might have found somebody there in New York. All right, football fans, let's be real. How much is your next day worth? You know what it's like after a big game, whether you're tailgating, celebrating a win, or even drowning out a loss. Those nights can hit hard the next morning. But I've got the perfect solution for you. No days wasted with their game-changing product, DHM Detox. DHM Detox is an absolute must-have. It's an all-natural, plant-based supplement designed to help you recover from a night out, so you wake up fresh, not sluggish. DHM Detox is packed with powerful ingredients like DHM, L-thystine, milk thistle, and prickly pear to help your body break down toxins and combat that next day fog. No more brain fog, no more nausea, no more Sunday scaries. Having a drink or two, take a packet and knock it down with a big glass of water. And if you're heading out for a big night on the town, double up with 2 packets to make sure you're feeling your best the next day. People think dehydration is the main culprit behind feeling like trash the next morning, but that's just 20% of the problem. The other 80%, toxins building up in the body. DHM Detox handles it like a pro. No Days Wasted is a local Pacific Northwest company. Support local and try No Days Wasted. Don't waste time feeling sluggish after a night out. Maximize life's moments with DHM Detox. It's a completely risk-free purchase. So if you don't love it, they'll refund you on your first 15 pack. Head over to nodayswasted.com/Richard and use code Richard to get 20% off your order. That's nodayswasted.com/Richard for 20% off and free shipping. Get ready to feel your best. Richard, let's go across overseas to London. The Minnesota Vikings stay hot. They're 5-0 now. They beat the Jets, and they make Aaron Rodgers' life heck early and often, jumping out to a 17-0 lead right out the gates. This Vikings team is hot. I don't think anyone wants to play him. Brian Flores' defense is all over the field. They lead the league with 11 interceptions. Richard, what were your thoughts about this game? Is Aaron Rodgers struggling to find his footing? It doesn't look like he's very confident out there with the players he's throwing to. I mean, Garrett Wilson finally gets more involved with 13 receptions, but it's like when it's in crunch time, he throws the pick, and it's like, man, you really wish he had someone like Davante Adams over there that he could trust to look for that back shoulder fade, and instead he had Mike Williams that was not looking. Richard, where's your head at right now with the Jets and Aaron Rodgers?
Well, let's give a lot of credit to the Minnesota Vikings and what they've been able to do this year with Sam Darnold. Wasn't his best game at all, 14-31, 179 and an interception. But the rest of the team and that defense really picked him up, put a lot of pressure on Aaron Rodgers. Aaron had a few errant passes that got away from him, things he would want back, things where he's throwing the football, at least that last interception. And I think he expected Mike Williams, to be looking back. They executed that play a few times, the back shoulder fade, few yards down the field, look early, put the ball up. I don't know if he didn't get the signal or what the case was. Aaron left it a little bit inside. Stephon Gilmore made a lot of big plays. There were a lot of penalties in this game I did not agree with. I thought the refs got way too involved. There were 3 penalties on Sauce Gardner in the first half. And I think only maybe one was legitimate. Only one that I would say, yeah, that's probably PI or a holding or something. But the other ones, it's a pivot route. He's running through. There's always going to be a little bit of contact. One of them, Justin Jefferson, is running through and pushes on an out route to DJ Reed, and he pushes through, and DJ, it's a little hand fight, and he lets him go, and he runs through, he bats the pass away. I don't think those are penalties, and those were really changing the trajectory of the game and the momentum in the game, and they were making it easy to the point Minnesota literally just started dropping back and throwing the ball up and hoping for a penalty, and they were getting it. I don't like that, and I think that was a terrible look by the NFL. And the referees, they've been awful this season in a lot of games, not just this game. These refs, this is probably the worst ref season I've seen in probably the last 4 or 5 years. It's really bad, and it's starting to affect the quality of the football game we're watching. But yes, give Brian Flores a lot of credit. Opposing quarterbacks are really struggling, and they've played some really solid quarterbacks. They played the San Francisco 49ers, gave them a really tough game. The 11 interceptions, You give a lot of credit to Andrew Van Winkle. Ginkle. The Ginkler is what they call him. 2 pick sixes this season. Just seems to be in the right place at the right time, have a great feel. He's a hand in glove fit in this defense. Stephon Gilmore, we talked about, had the interception. Cameron Bynum had another interception. Justin Jefferson had 6 for 92, but drew multiple PI calls and holding calls that helped move the ball down the field. Harrison Smith had a sack. It just seems like they're in a good rhythm. They're confident. They're feeling good. They had some injuries today. They lost Aaron Jones, so this bye couldn't have come at a better time for them. They're going to go into this bye, heal up, and then they play your Detroit Lions. So we'll have to talk about that. This NFC North division is pretty crazy. It's getting really crazy. Obviously, the Green Bay Packers won today against the LA Rams. But Aaron Rodgers, this was a tough game to watch. He does not turn the ball over in the way he did. I think they said this is the first time in his career he threw 2 picks in the first quarter. I mean, he rarely has 2 interception games, period, point blank. He just looked a little off. And again, might be the time where they have to make a move. You hear about the Davante Adams situation, and I know there's a bunch of teams are aggressive for him and doing this and doing that and trying to make moves for him. I don't think he approved going anywhere but the New York Jets. And sure, he had his time with Derek Carr and they have a good relationship, a good rapport. But I think the way things are going right now and the just mishaps, the miscommunications, things that definitely wouldn't happen if Davante Adams were there, because they just have a different rapport. I mean, we talk about it's almost like they have telepathy with one another. They have a really incredible connection, and it works. And it would have helped them win this game. I think if Davante Adams was a New York Jet, they win this game. They played well enough defensively at times to win this game. Will McDonald got another sack. Isaiah Oliver had a sack. Brandon Echols had an interception. DJ Reed played a really solid game. I thought Sauce played solid regardless of the penalties that they called on them, because I don't think there were penalties. But the Jets got to recover quick and get ready for this Monday night divisional game against the Buffalo Bills, and they have to have it. The Buffalo Bills are coming off a really, really tough last-second loss to the Houston Texans. We're going to get to that game and talk about it. The Vikings, like we said, have a bye week, and Mitchell, now we got to talk about this defense in a way that gets a lot of regard, because they are the Uber Eats, almost perfect defense. This is a segment brought to you by Uber Eats, the almost perfect defense, where we highlight the NFL defense that put on the week's most dominating performance. The Minnesota Vikings did that. They harassed Aaron Rodgers to the tune of 3 interceptions. They were hitting him. I saw multiple times him cringing. I thought he was about to go into the blue tent. Before that, roughing the punter call. Stephon Gilmore was playing lockdown coverage. We talked about the Ginkler and the impact that he's having. It's just been fun to watch this defense bringing pressure and creating chaos every single drive. And that's why they're this week's Uber Eats almost perfect defense for everything they were able to accomplish over there on the other side of the pond in London.
And remember, you can order almost anything with the Uber Eats app, the official on-demand delivery partner of the NFL. Order now. Richard, it pains me to say it, but the Vikings look for real. They came out, they dominated early, defensively, offensively. This wasn't Sam Darnold's best game, but he got his beast involved in Justin Jefferson. And this team won ugly. That's the reality of it. And when they do that, they stay undefeated. This game against Detroit, holy cow, I'm excited for it, but that's going to be a true test in the division. Talk about another division test. We saw one in Cincinnati today, and the Baltimore Ravens came in. They started out looking like they were going to take care of business, and then Cincy got going, and Jamar Chase got involved. And this was a game that you saw Joe Burrow earn his keep. I mean, throwing for 392 yards, 5 touchdowns, career high, but they still cannot get the W, and it was at home Is it time to panic in Cincy?
Yes. Yes, it is. It's definitely time to panic in Cincy. I mean, we just came off of the Uber Eats almost perfect defense to a game where nobody played defense.
Nope.
You talk about, what is this, 79 points combined. Give Lamar Jackson a lot of credit. His sixth game with 4 passing touchdowns and 50 rush yards to most in NFL history. He's 9-2 against the Cincinnati Bengals in his career. But for the Cincinnati Bengals, when you play this well offensively, you talk about the numbers and give Joe Burrow a ton of credit. You know, I've been critical of him at times when he struggled, so I have to be just as I have to praise him just as high as I criticize him when he plays well, because he was 30 of 39, 392 yards, 5 touchdowns, career high, 1 interception. Then you got Jamar Chase, 10 for 193 and 2 touchdowns. It doesn't get much better than that, Mitchell. I mean, those are video game numbers. And then you say, who else was eating? T. Higgins. T. Higgins, 9 for 83 and another 2 touchdowns. When you play that well offensively and you lose, oh, yes, sir, it's cause for concern. Yes, I am very concerned, because that doesn't make sense. Quarterback throws for 5 touchdowns in an L. But you know why, Mitchell? It's because Derrick Henry really put his stamp on it, especially in overtime after the McPherson missed field goal. Let's not be critical of McPherson, because that bobbled snap is the reason he missed that field goal. You can't bobble the snap in that situation. He was halfway through his swing before they ever even got the ball placed, and there's nothing you can do about that timing. You can't really stop and slow down. People are going to come block that kick, so you have to keep your same rhythm and just hope the ball gets put down. But the 51-yard rush in overtime to set up the game-winning field goal was incredible. That's why they brought Derrick Henry here, to take some pressure off Lamar Jackson, and that's exactly what he was able to do in overtime. Huge play. Zay Flowers, great game, 7 catches for 111 yards. Kyle Hamilton getting back involved, getting back to form, had a sack in the game. Marlon Humphreys, interception in this game. But you really start to get concerned, because you talk about the Cincinnati Bengals and their slow starts, but usually you're not playing this well offensively with the slow starts. Usually these are the games you're winning. Hey, it was slow start, and then Joe Burrow started throwing 5 touchdowns, 4 touchdowns, and then all of a sudden they look like the team there. But they're not. Their defense isn't stepping up, and that's the biggest concern. They just gave up 41 points, and they have struggled all season, giving up points, giving up yards, just not looking like the defense that caused a lot of chaos and created turnovers and created havoc on their way to a Super Bowl early in Joe Burrow's career. They're not making the changes that are necessary. They don't have the personnel, it looks like, to really be a strong defense. And without that, you're going to waste offensive performances like this from Joe Burrow and T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, where in any other game, you'd say this should be a walk-off win for them, but not against the Baltimore Ravens and Lamar Jackson and everything he was able to do. Good game by them. Unfortunate for the Cincinnati Bengals, because they had a clear chance to win it in overtime with the McPherson field goal, but they didn't get it done. And now the Ravens go to the Commanders and the Bengals go to the Giants, coming off a big win against the Seattle Seahawks. That's going to be a better game than people think.
No doubt. And this Ravens team, this might be the biggest upgrade this offseason. You go from Gus Edwards to Derrick Henry, and now we see this new version of Lamar Jackson. He's already at league MVP, but when he's throwing for 4 touchdowns and he's getting the likes of Zay Flowers involved for 7 and 111, we saw a little bit more of Mark Andrews today. This combo with Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry can be absolutely lethal. And now it's time for Players in Prime Time, brought to you by our friends and partners over at Breitling. No shock, but this week the player in primetime goes to Lamar Jackson. I guess it probably would have gone to Joe Burrow if that kick were different, but we got to give it to the winner, Lamar Jackson, going 26 for 42, 348, 4 tutties. 55 yards. I got my Breitling on today.
Yeesh.
It's another beautiful one, Richard. Let's shout out to our friends and partners over at Breitling, and congrats to Lamar Jackson, this week's player in primetime. We had another primetime game. Houston Texans. Stefon Diggs gets some revenge against the Buffalo Bills. And we saw Josh Allen on the struggle bus. I think he probably wishes he had Stefon Diggs in this game. Khalil Shakir cannot possibly mean this much to this team, because what you saw today was just a Josh Allen we've never seen, Richard. 9 for 30 for 131 and a touchdown.
Yeesh.
It looks like they do not have the pieces in Buffalo that they need. Khalil Shakir's out. They're turning to Keon Coleman, who only had one catch, granted a big one for 49 yards and a touchdown. But this Bills team does not look like the same Bills team we've seen in years past. They got out to a hot start this year, and now they've dropped 2 straight. Where's your concern meter with the Buffalo Bills, Richard?
Well, it's getting there, Mitchell. It's moving up. It's probably about an 8 right now, just because of the injuries, the inconsistency. But let's not make it a bigger deal than what it is, because they had many chances to win this game, and they had a chance to win in regulation. It wasn't a blowout. This wasn't a game where they just got totally manhandled or outclassed by any way, even when Josh Allen struggled mightily. 98 yards total in the last 2 first halves. That's a problem. But they caught 3 deep passes on their own 3-yard line. That didn't make sense late in that game. That was some questionable decision making from McDermott. When they punted to the Texans, they were already in field goal range. Nico Collins going down with the injury is concerning if you're the Houston Texans. But again, they're finding ways, just like the Kansas City Chiefs, to win ugly, to win games where it's close, it's a dogfight, it's a single-digit game, and they're doing that consistently. Cam Akers had a solid game, in replacement of Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon should be coming back in the near future. Stefon Diggs had a really solid revenge game, 6 for 82. But C.J. Stroud looked like his old self, 28 of 38, 331, a touchdown and an interception. Khalil Davis with a sack. They look like a really complete team. And I know Buffalo's on a downward spiral right now, but they had a chance to win that game. I like Terrell Bernard. He had another interception this game. He's been stepping up in a big way he's been a bright spot in that secondary for the Buffalo Bills. But again, Josh Allen says everybody eats speed. This is sometimes that strategy, that philosophy doesn't work as well. And this is one of those games where they're starting to find answers. They're starting to cover these guys well. They're starting to make tighter windows. And when you don't have a guy that can win one-on-one consistently, a go-to number 1 stud receiver, then you run into situations where you're going to struggle. James Cook, this is probably one of his better games, 20 carries for 82 yards and a touchdown. And so they were leaning on the running game, and I think that's what kept them in this ball game. But this game at the Jets on Monday Night Football is going to be huge for them. They're 3-2, still got a winning record, still at the top of this division, but things can change in a hurry if they lose that game. Then they're sharing then they only have a share of the lead with the New York Jets. Things are changing. Houston has a chance to really establish themselves as a contender, and with a 5-1 record, if they go to New England and beat the New England Patriots, that's a very realistic possibility. But anything can happen, and I don't put anything past anybody right now. I could not have predicted some of these games that have happened in the National Football League. I could not have predicted Minnesota Vikings being 5-0. I could not have predicted the San Francisco 49ers being 2-3 at this point in the season. It's one of those years where anything can happen, and it's exciting. But let's move on to the Indianapolis versus the Jacksonville Jaguars game. The Jacksonville Jaguars finally pick up their first win of the season. Trevor Lawrence has the best game, I think, of his career. 28 of 34, very efficient, 371 yards, 2 touchdowns and an interception. They got contributions from a lot of places. Tank Bigsby continue continues to shine, continues to make an impact at 13 carries for 101 yards and 2 touchdowns. Brian Thomas, they finally figured out, hey, if you throw him more than 2 or 3 passes, he's going to get 100 yards. And they threw him a bunch of passes. He had 5 catches for 122 and a huge touchdown. Trayvon Walker was a huge story with the 3 sacks of Joe Flacco. But this was a dogfight of a game, 34-37. Give Joe Flacco a lot of credit. It doesn't matter where he's at, Mitchell. It doesn't matter what logo is on his helmet or where he is. He is a consummate professional, and he's a gunslinger. He can get hot at any time, at any age, and he's from the old guard. He's from the old guard of quarterbacks. He had 359 yards, 3 touchdowns, had some great connections with Alec Pierce. Alec Pierce had 3 catches for 134 and a touchdown. Nick Cross had an interception, but that is 10 straight home wins that the Jacksonville Jaguars have had against the Indianapolis Colts. But I think there's hope for the Indianapolis Colts. Joe Flacco is the answer right now, and I don't think even when Anthony Richardson comes back, I don't think you just throw him back in the lineup and you take Flacco out. He's had 4 300-plus passing yard games and 3 touchdowns since week 14 of last season when he was with the Cleveland Browns. You just don't change that. You don't change that. You see he's getting everybody involved. A lot of these receivers are getting a shine. They're finally starting to see this offense, what this offense could be with somebody at the helm that fully understands the adjustments and what they're seeing and can play fast. They have another division game at the Titans next week. And the Jags go to the Bears, who are playing really, really, really solid football now. They've been playing great defensively, but now it appears that Caleb Williams is starting to figure it out in a big way. He may be what he was supposed to be, Mitchell. They're finding more time. He's getting the ball out of his hands a lot faster than he was. They beat the Carolina Panthers, which we know teams have been able to do this year. But let's give him credit. He was 20 of 29, 304 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, ran the ball for 34 yards. He was only sacked once. That's the big story. He was only sacked once. He's getting the ball out of his hands. In the 2 wins, he's had 71% completion percentage, 461 yards, 3 touchdowns, and no interceptions. So if you're a Bears fan, this is encouraging. This is really encouraging. DJ Moore had a really great game, but you're seeing the things that the talent that everybody saw when he was coming out and they were calling him a generational talent be showcased now. You know, when he's able to be upright, when he's able to trust himself, trust his reads, get the ball out of his hands into his playmaker's hands, it's been really great.
And Richard, that's why he deserves the ovation of the day. Brought to you by our friends of the program, Ovation for Men. This week, the ovation is going to Caleb Williams. Balled out, looked like the #1 pick, like everyone thought he would be. Got, like you said, everyone was getting involved. Rome Odunze, DJ Moore. I mean, we got to see a little bit more of Keenan Allen, but you got to like to see this as a Bears fan. They're above 500. The team's humming. DeAndre Swift, but congratulations to Caleb Williams, our ovation of the day, brought to you by our friends again at Ovation for Men. Ovation is our go-to cologne here at The Volume and the Richard Sherman podcast. They celebrate the style, creativity, and excellence of deserving men. It's not just a fragrance, it's a statement. It's available exclusively at Amazon. Click the link below in the description to redeem a first-time buyer code of 15% discount. Again, that's a first-time buyer coupon for a 15% discount. Check them out, guys. They have a really good fragrance. Richard, let's take it to the Packers. They hold off the Rams. This will look like a trap game, right? I mean, you get Jordan Love's coming back. He's looking a little bit rusty, but getting better. They go to L.A., they get out early, and the Rams make it a game. Your thoughts about this team? I'm still not sold on the Packers. I still think they made a big mistake in moving off Aaron Jones and moving over to Josh Jacobs. I'm still not sold. Where's your head at with this team right now?
Well, they're winning ball games, Mitchell, and that's what it's about. And they're winning games they're supposed to win. And there's something to be said for that. We just saw the Seattle Seahawks and San Francisco 49ers not get that done, not win games they were supposed to win. Jordan Love's coming back from the injury, playing relatively well. Even with all things considered, he was 15 of 26, 224, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Josh Jacobs is playing solid. I think Aaron Jones, like you said, was a better fit, but he did well. 19 carries for 73 yards, some crucial first downs. He had a touchdown. I think there's going to end up being 3 teams represented in the playoffs from the NFC North, and deservedly so. These teams are playing well. I mean, Minnesota's the most unexpected team, and they're at the top of the division. Your Detroit Lions are expected to be contenders. The Packers expected to be contenders, and they're showing up the way they should.
Oh, you look at another team that's turning into a big contender right in front of our eyes. It's the Washington Commanders. We talked about it in our season preview. If Jaden Daniels can come in here and take this team like CJ Stroud did with Houston, Washington's got all the personnel to be a problem. They are a problem. Richard, they beat the Browns 34-13. This game was never in doubt. Before we get into Jaden Daniels, I want to talk a little bit about Deshaun Watson, because this Cleveland Brown team looks so out of sorts. They look so dysfunctional out there, and I think it starts at the quarterback position. If you're coaching this roster, are you dumping Deshaun Watson in favor of Jameis Winston?
Well, I mean, you got to make something change. You got to make some kind of change. I don't know if you do it now, because again, he's shown sparks and flashes, but he hasn't shown enough to merit the amount of money that he's been paid and the amount of acclaim. He has been a great player in the past, and it just looks like a shell of himself these last few weeks, last few seasons, really. But I want to talk about Jaden Daniels. He looks like a top 10 quarterback in the National Football League. Really looks in command, having fun. Wasn't as efficient this game. He was 14 of 25, 238 yards, 1 touchdown, and the interception. But he had 82 yards on the ground. Was really dynamic running the football, keeping himself out of harm's way. Just looks totally in control, totally relaxed. It's not like they're just winning these games, Mitchell. They're winning by multiple scores each game. And this is a Cleveland Browns defense that I have a lot of respect for. They have a lot of big-time playmakers. They have Myles Garrett. They have Denzel Ward. They have really big-time playmakers and players. And he had his way with him. I mean, he still has a 77% completion percentage on the year, has thrown for 1,100 yards, 4 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. But the Commanders, just as a team, look really confident. I think his confidence is rubbing off on his defense because they're playing well, held the Browns to 13 points, held the Arizona Cardinals to 14 points last week. Dan Quinn can draw it up. I said it when he was hired. This is a great coach and a great motivator of men. And it looks like he's in the right situation with the right quarterback, the right coordinators, the right men who believe, the right veterans, and Zach Ertz and Bobby Wagner to really get these guys and keep them in line. And they're hitting on all cylinders. I said it on Thursday night. I think this team wins this NFC East division, and I don't think it's going to be particularly close. The Philadelphia Eagles don't look like they once did. They look like a shell of themselves, especially with A.J. Brown out, Davante Smith out. They just don't have a lot of answers. That offensive line looks a lot more leaky than it did in the past, with Lane Johnson being out, with Jason Kelce not being in the fold anymore. They don't look like the same dominant force. The Dallas Cowboys offensively, they don't have the offensive line that they've been known for the last decade. Defensively, they don't really have any identity. They used to be able to rush the passer, but now DeMarcus Lawrence is on IR. Micah Parsons is injured. You don't know where that pass rush is going to come from. And even when they were playing, it wasn't a dominant attack. So I could see the Commanders winning that division and ruining somebody's season in those playoffs.
I'm right there with you. And somebody you mentioned, we got to get him back on the podcast, is Bobby Wagner, your friend. How happy do you think he is right now that he chose Washington this offseason? I got to imagine he is absolutely thrilled with that decision.
Well, it was a lot of things that went into that decision, and people think, oh, it was just because they offered him the most money. No, he has the chance to go back with Ken Norton, who coached him with the Seattle Seahawks, who's an incredible friend of him, and they have an incredible relationship. And if he's gonna, continue his career anywhere, it was going to be with Ken Norton, and then you talk about Dan Quinn and the relationship that they have. It was just a match made in heaven there in terms of the personnel and the coaches. But then you're winning ball games, and I don't think anybody expected them to be 4-1 at this point in the season. I'm very happy for him, very happy for that team and what they've been able to do. Happy they got the quarterback of the future. Happy for Washington. You know, they've had some dark years over the past few decades, and so it's good to see that city have some hope and have a team that's playing hard and playing well and looking good doing it.
A city that does not have a whole lot of hope right now. The Las Vegas Raiders go on the road and lose to the Broncos. They're looking pretty rough right now, Richard. Davante Adams this week formally requested a trade out of town. What do you make of this? I know you talked about Davante inevitably ending up with New York, but what does this do to a team? How much does this fracture the Las Vegas Raiders?
Well, it fractures you more if you're losing. You know, it becomes more of an issue and it permeates throughout the building if you're losing. And we heard the news that Mark Davis isn't accepting anything lower than a second rounder, but you don't get to make the call anymore. You know, are you going to continue to pay Davante Adams not to play? Are you going to continue? He's one of the highest paid receivers in the National Football League. Well, he used to be. I mean, it's slower now, but you're going to have to continue to pay him. And if you don't want to play him, you know, you're going to just sit him on the bench and keep paying him. That's a lot of money to pay somebody. And teams know that. Teams know that you're going to have to eventually fold. We don't have to fold and give you a second rounder, give you what you want. If you want to hold him and continue to let your team sink and continue to let your team pay him money to not play, then it's a lose-lose for everybody. And I don't think they're going to do that. I think Mark has to say that, you know, has to say what the asking price would be, but I think they're going to settle for something less than that, maybe a player in a third-round pick or fourth and a fifth or something along those lines. And I think he's going to make his way back to Aaron Rodgers in the New York Jets, and that's the fit that I would want to see.
Well, Richard, I will let you conclude us. We got a couple more games to play this week 5, but we saw a lot of action today. I know it was a rough one for Seattle and San Francisco fans, but there's a full season ahead of us. Richard, sign us off.
Well, I mean, San Francisco fans know that this has happened before. This has happened in the past. The San Francisco 49ers have started slow and then been able to pick it up throughout the season and turn into this team that we all know they can be. The Seattle Seahawks have all the tools. Geno Smith is a really good quarterback and can be elite if they give him time to throw, if they can get those offensive line issues fixed and get Leonard Williams back and Byron Murphy back, then this defense is going to be what they were the first 3 games of the season. But you need pressure on the quarterback to do that. You need big fellas who dominate in the way they do. They're really special players to get that done. I appreciate you guys joining me this week. I may sound a little more somber this week because my heart is hurting. You know, I got an ice box where my heart used to be. It's frozen, and I don't want to feel anything right now. My team's lost, and they lost to teams they shouldn't have lost to. I don't know what else to say. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you decided to spend time with us, and we appreciate you joining us every single week. Hit that sub button if you're new. See you next time.